Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Jason was never one to make a scene. He always believed that strong relationships were built on trust and conversation. And during 7 years of marriage with Vanessa, he trusted her. Even when she started going out more often with her friends. Even when she began sleeping on the other side of the bed, saying she was too tired to talk. He thought it was just a phase. After all, every marriage has its ups and downs, right? But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for what he witnessed on that trip. The idea of traveling by train was hers. Vanessa insisted so much, with that sweet and determined way of hers, that Jason ended up giving in. She said it was a chance to reconnect, some time just for the two of them, away from the rush, away from the suffocating routine. She spoke with enthusiasm, planned every detail as if organizing the honeymoon of their dreams. He didn't understand where all this effort was coming from, but he preferred to see it as her willingness to save whatever was left between them. After all, if she wanted to try, he would try too. They boarded on a Thursday morning. Vanessa was glowing, dressed with care, made up as if she were going out for an elegant dinner. Jason, in a discreet way, even complimented her. She thanked him with a restrained smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. They talked a little during the first few hours. She pointed out landscapes through the window, made comments about the places they passed, laughed with a bit more enthusiasm than usual. But there was something strange. A restlessness in her gestures, a gaze that wandered off every now and then down the train corridors. Jason noticed, but he chose not to comment. He was still trying to believe that this trip was a sincere attempt at reconciliation. It was after lunch, when Vanessa said she was going to the bathroom, that everything started to fall apart. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Jason sat there looking at the empty corridor, feeling his stomach churn with anxiety. He got up and went after her. As he crossed the train cars, he noticed some movement in the dining car. And then, between a row of elegant tables and chairs, he saw something he would never forget. Vanessa was kissing a man. A long, intense kiss, the kind that doesn't come from just any impulse. She held his face with both hands, as if making up for lost time with an old acquaintance. Jason didn't make a sound. He pulled out his phone, activated the camera, and recorded the scene. His hands were shaking, but the focus was steady. When he stopped the recording, he took a deep breath, put the phone away, and then spoke firmly, "Vanessa." She turned around as if she had been shocked. The smile disappeared, her face went pale. The man next to her froze too. "Jason, it's not what you think," she tried to say, fixing her hair, taking a half step back. "Oh, of course," he replied sarcastically. "A casual kiss with a stranger. You tripped and fell into his mouth?" I don't know what came over me. I barely know this guy, it was just something that happened." Jason gave a slight laugh through his nose. He walked past them without saying anything else. He crossed the car as if carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Then he found the woman who had been with that man since they boarded. She was sitting alone, drinking a glass of wine and looking out at the scenery. She had a calm air about her, oblivious to what was happening just a few meters away. Jason approached calmly. "Excuse me for interrupting, can I talk to you?" She nodded, surprised by the approach. Before she could ask anything else, Jason handed over his phone with the video open. She watched in silence. When it ended, her face twisted with anger and disbelief. "That bastard." She jumped up, bumped into the waiter, dropped her glass. Chaos broke out. The argument exploded with shouts, insults, and tears. Vanessa tried to explain herself, stammered, said it was all a misunderstanding. Jason just watched her with his arms crossed, in silence, as if every word she said was more useless than the last. Minutes later, when things calmed down and the other woman left for her cabin, Jason approached Vanessa, who was still visibly shaken. She tried to hold his hand. "Love, I'm sorry. I was weak. Enough," he cut her off, his voice firm. "We're getting off at the next stop. That's it." Vanessa hesitated, looked at him with contempt and a hint of mockery. "Then you get off. I'm going to continue to the hotel. I'm not wasting this trip. The hotel is paid for. I deserve at least that." Jason didn't respond. He grabbed his suitcase, checked his documents, and returned to his cabin. The silence of the train car felt heavier than any shout heard just moments before. When the next stop was announced, he got off. And that's when the final surprise of the day came. Just a few minutes later, he saw the lover getting off the same train car. Behind him, his wife came pushing her suitcase forcefully, yelling loudly. The two started arguing in the middle of the platform, surrounded by curious onlookers. Jason observed from a distance, without approaching, without intervening. There was something poetic about watching this, the theater of betrayal collapsing in front of an audience. This story was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, Jason was certain that he was in control. Jason walked to the station entrance and took a deep breath. It wasn't anger he felt, nor sadness. It was something else. An emptiness, as if something had been ripped out from inside. He didn't want answers. Nor explanations. He had already seen enough. And all he needed now was to act. He got into the first available taxi and, during the ride back, mentally reviewed each step of what he would do. He knew the logic well, and this time, he decided to apply that same rationality to what remained of the marriage. Even before arriving home, he had already made the first concrete decision, to sever the financial ties with Vanessa. He knew exactly how she operated. She always used their shared resources freely, buying unnecessary things, planning trips, spending on beauty treatments and small vanities. Jason never stopped her. He earned well, kept everything in order, and thought it was part of pleasing someone he loved. But now, the scenario was different. The person for whom he had built a life was using him not only as a partner but also as a crutch to sustain a double life. As soon as he got home, he went straight to the safe and retrieved his documents. The priority now was to protect what was his. He sat down in front of the computer, accessed the bank account, and emptied the joint accounts. He transferred everything to a personal account he had kept inactive for years. Then, he blocked Vanessa's access to the credit cards. He removed her name from insurance policies and deactivated her authorization on investments. She would no longer have access to anything, no credit, no account, no benefits. Everything had been earned through hard work and trust. And now, it would be preserved with strategy. Without wasting time, he called Emma, the lawyer who had helped him a while ago with a family matter. He got straight to the point, told her what had happened, and mentioned the video he recorded. Emma wasn't surprised. She had seen situations like this before, but what caught her attention was the coldness with which Jason described the events. He didn't cry, didn't hesitate. He simply recounted the facts clearly and asked her to start the divorce process based on the prenuptial agreement that he had insisted on signing at the beginning of their marriage. Something Vanessa thought was excessive at the time, but that would now become the key piece of this whole story. While the legal actions unfolded, Vanessa enjoyed the hotel. She still believed she had control of the situation. She posted photos on social media with generic phrases about resting the mind and renewing energy. She even recorded a story smiling by the pool, as if nothing had happened. Then she received a message that made her confront another layer of reality she had refused to see. It was from the lover. A short text, direct, and leaving no room for interpretation: "Please, don't contact me again." She read it once, twice, 3 times, as if the brevity of the words hid something more. But there was nothing. It was just the dry closure of a story that, for him, no longer made sense to continue. Without replying, she blocked the number and placed her phone on the table next to the bed. For the first time, she chose to accept that everything was over. But everything was about to collapse. On the third day, she went to dinner at an elegant restaurant in the city. She ordered wine, an appetizer, a main course. But when she handed over her credit card, she was informed it was blocked. She tried another. Same result. She asked the waiter for a moment and went to the restroom. She tried accessing the account on her phone. Zero balance. Her first reaction was to call Jason. The call was ignored. She tried again. Silence. She sent a long message full of excuses, but nothing, not even seen. In a panic, she called Chloe, her longtime friend. She made up a story, said she had lost her wallet, that she had no access to her accounts, and that she needed an urgent transfer. Chloe, even without fully understanding, helped. She paid the bill so that Vanessa could leave the restaurant without being exposed. The humiliation was already set in motion, even though no one had said a word. On the way back to the hotel, she still tried to take a taxi, but was stopped again. The driver demanded upfront payment, and she had no way to transfer the money at that moment. She called Chloe again, who, despite growing suspicion, sent another amount through the app. Vanessa arrived at the hotel with a worn-out face, sore feet, and her mind in chaos. Even though the hotel was already paid for, the feeling of being without resources, without support, and without direction was a tough blow. She threw herself onto the bed with her suitcase still closed and stared at the ceiling for hours, as if expecting something to change suddenly. What she didn't know was that, far from there, Jason was more focused than ever on closing everything with precision. During the night, he entered the insurance system for the car again and removed Vanessa's name from the contract. He registered the vehicle solely in his name. Then, he accessed the shared subscription accounts and cancelled everything she used, streaming services, the gym membership, even the cell phone plan. The message was clear. Nothing that was achieved together would be shared anymore. She had broken the invisible agreement of respect, and he, in turn, would ensure his legal and emotional protection so that she would bear every consequence. Meanwhile, Jason continued in silence, without exposing himself, without needing to justify his actions. Meanwhile, Vanessa, even without understanding how everything turned so fast, began to realize that the one in control now was him. And when she tried to return home, she discovered that everything had already changed, and that she no longer belonged to that life. On the 6th morning of the trip, Vanessa arrived home believing that, despite everything, there was still some room for dialogue. She got out of the rideshare car wearing her sunglasses and holding her phone, ready to face what she imagined would be an uncomfortable conversation with Jason. But as soon as she turned the corner, she encountered the most symbolic scene of the entire story. Her suitcases were outside. Suitcases, bags, boxes, perfumes, designer purses. Everything was piled up hastily and precisely. People passing by slowed down, some stopped. An elderly woman even shook her head discreetly. What was private had become public. Vanessa approached the front door, quickly inserted the key, trying to hide her nervousness, but the attempt failed. The key turned uselessly. She persisted, looked around, started knocking. Seconds later, she knocked harder. She shouted Jason's name. No response. When she heard a window opening upstairs, she looked up. There he was. No hatred on his face, no shouting. Just holding a white envelope. "This here," he said, his voice firm, "is a court document. It prevents you from approaching me until the process is completed. Signed by a judge. It's official." She tried to argue, but he simply tossed the envelope into the garden and closed the window, ending any possibility of discussion. With no other choice, she grabbed her phone and called Chloe. The same friend who had helped her during the crisis at the restaurant, who transferred money when she was out of resources. Chloe answered, listened to everything in silence, and said Vanessa could stay with her for a few days. Vanessa thanked her, though embarrassed. She was homeless, without access to her own money, exposed to the neighborhood, and now dependent on someone who should have been only emotional support, not financial. That night, lying on her friend's couch, she began to reflect. She talked about everything. Said she never expected any of it. That she always saw Jason as someone too peaceful, incapable of reacting firmly. That she thought he would argue, fight, maybe even cry, but never move a piece of the chessboard with such coldness. Vanessa believed she still had control of the situation. Deep down, it wasn't just about the betrayal, it was about control. She was used to dictating the pace, to leading the moments of the marriage, to choosing when to pull away and when to return. And now, for the first time, she realized that control had been surgically ripped from her hands. This is where many people are wrong. Believing that those who love calmly, who are gentle and patient, are incapable of reacting. But there's a hidden strength in this kind of person. A strength that doesn't scream, that doesn't break glasses, but that rebuilds everything silently, with strategy, dignity, and clearly defined boundaries. Jason, in a subtle way, reclaimed his identity. He stopped trying to save a failed relationship and started protecting himself. And he did it without losing balance, without lowering his posture. He delivered exactly what she never expected, a clean cut, no drama, no spectacle. Meanwhile, Chloe observed everything with an increasingly suspicious eye. She had known Vanessa since college. She knew the unresolved stories, the impulsive decisions, the careless words thrown into the wind as if the world were always at her service. And now, for the first time, she began to see Vanessa in ruins. Not because of the pain of losing a marriage, but due to the collapse of an image built on convenience. Vanessa spoke of regret, but her eyes still searched for culprits. Instead of reflecting on the impact of her choices, she spoke more about how betrayed she felt by Jason changing so quickly, as if he had no right to evolve in the face of pain. In the following weeks, the divorce process advanced quickly. Jason maintained his silence. He didn't send messages, didn't check on where she was, didn't show anger. He simply carried on with his life as if that chapter had been closed with a firm period. And that bothered her more than any shout. The silent disdain said it all. Vanessa felt erased, irrelevant, out of the script. And then, as if life wanted to teach her one more lesson about consequences, she faced another shock. Something that would come not only to dismantle what remained of her self-esteem but to make it clear that, this time, she had lost much more than she thought. Jason's silence weighed more than any shout. As the divorce process moved forward, Vanessa tried to maintain some semblance of control. She lived in Chloe's house as a guest but acted as if her stay there was temporary, as if her time there was just a brief interval before life returned to normal. But in practice, all that remained were closed boxes, ignored messages, and the growing realization that Jason had moved on without looking back. He stayed completely absent throughout the entire process, handing over his part to the lawyer and allowing everything to proceed without emotional involvement. The day the papers arrived was strange. Vanessa stared at the envelope for a while, unable to bring herself to open it. When she finally did, there were no surprises. Only confirmations. Her name was already separated from his surname. Their assets were protected by clauses she herself had signed at the beginning of the marriage, without giving importance at the time. Nothing was hers anymore. No rights, no ties, no bridges to return. The contract had been terminated, officially and definitively. And that, as much as she anticipated, still hurt more than she wanted to admit. A few weeks later, Chloe asked her to talk. Vanessa thought it was about the house, perhaps something about deadlines or changes in plans. But her friend was different. She sat down with a serious posture, firm eyes, low voice. She said she wanted to be transparent. That she had waited for the right moment out of respect. Vanessa frowned, confused. Chloe then took a deep breath and revealed that she and Jason were seeing each other. She said it was unexpected, that they had grown closer gradually, and that the relationship had become real. The impact of that was like a punch to the chest. Vanessa took a moment to react. She looked at Chloe, trying to process what she had just heard. She felt her face heat up, her whole body tremble. She tried to speak, but the words came out jumbled. When she managed to express herself, it was with anger. She accused her friend of betrayal, said she should have distanced herself, that it was absurd for someone who helped her in a difficult moment to become involved with her ex-husband so soon after. Chloe remained calm. She said she understood the pain, but that nothing had been planned. That Jason hadn't pursued anything, that she too was surprised by the feelings, but she couldn't pretend it wasn't happening. Vanessa stood up from the chair with tears in her eyes, grabbed the suitcase she had never fully unpacked, and began collecting what still belonged to her. She said she would never forgive this double betrayal, and that Chloe was as manipulative as any enemy she'd ever had. Her friend just watched, without trying to stop her. When Vanessa crossed the door and walked down the street with hurried steps and a shattered heart, she knew nothing more could be said. What was done was done. With no other options, Vanessa went to her mother's house. A place she usually avoided, but now the only roof available. She sat silently in her old teenage bedroom, staring at the same walls that once served as a backdrop for her future plans. But none of the dreams she had there had come true. Everything had collapsed because of the choices she herself made. She lost her husband, comfort, dignity, and now even the strongest friendship she thought she had. And the cruelest part of it all was that no one needed to seek revenge violently. People simply moved on with their lives, and that's what destroyed her from within. The months that followed were quiet, and each silence told a story Vanessa didn't want to hear. Life didn't stop for her to reorganize herself. Time moved forward with the same coldness with which Jason had ended everything. She tried to maintain some appearance of normalcy, even sought a temporary job to help with her mother's expenses, but everywhere she went, she carried the weight of being remembered as the woman who lost everything by her own choices. No one said it aloud, but she felt it in their looks. She felt it in the way people responded to her questions, in the colder tone of conversations, in the distance of friends who once surrounded her. Meanwhile, Jason's life blossomed quietly. Those who saw him on the streets noticed a lighter man, more confident, even younger. Chloe was by his side naturally, without showing off, without provoking. Simply living. And that's what bothered Vanessa more than anything else. There was no exaggerated revenge, no public exposure, no angry words. He didn't need to sink to the level of betrayal to seek justice. All he had to do was choose his own well-being. He chose to rebuild. He chose to give himself peace. One day, when Vanessa went downtown to take care of some errands, she saw Jason and Chloe crossing the street hand in hand. They were laughing about something simple, a random comment. Nothing flashy, just intimate and sincere. She stopped on the other side of the sidewalk, instinctively, and watched. The world spun around her, but in that moment, everything seemed to stop. There was an emptiness inside her that was no longer anger, nor frustration. It was the awareness of what she had let slip away. And that, unlike everything else she had gone through, was what hurt the most, realizing that the love she thought was too secure to lose was now too distant to reach. The irony is that Vanessa, in her emotional arrogance, never believed Jason would be capable of reinventing himself. She saw his calmness as weakness, his patience as passivity. But she didn't understand that sometimes the most destructive strength is the one that acts in silence. He didn't need shouts, insults, or theatrical vengeance. His counterattack was made with firm decisions and emotional intelligence. And when she thought she could manipulate him back into her orbit, he had already moved on to another universe, one where she no longer made sense. The end of this story didn't come with slammed doors or dramatic endings. It came with maturity, clear choices, and someone letting go of what hurt him and building something new with someone who recognized the value he brought. Jason moved forward. Vanessa stayed where she chose to stop. And perhaps the most powerful lesson in all of this is understanding that underestimating someone else's pain often means underestimating the strength that pain awakens. Because those who are hurt but rise with dignity don't return to mend. They come back stronger, with their heads held high. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.